The BINA team, Cheryl Knott, who is our research manager, who many of you know. Logan Schertz is kind of our tech guy in the background. And Carlos Carpati is our database developer. Daniel Delgado is with us. He's our student assistant this semester. And do I have any other students with us today? But if I do, I will shout out to you. All right, so who do we have in our group? A lot of people that live and work in Baltimore, some that live in Baltimore, some that work in Baltimore, and then lots of folks from the nonprofit world and public sector who are people that give us a lot of data. So those are folks that provide us with a lot of the data that you're going to see today. And we can't do our work without them. So thanks to all of you that are here. All right, so I'm going to give, again, basically a 20-minute overview and demo of our website, and that will be recorded. And then when we go to Q&A, we will turn off the recording. All right, so welcome to Vital Signs 19, the 19th year that we've released Vital Signs data. And you know, obviously an unusual year for a whole bunch of different reasons, and which I'll explain. But just for those of you that may not be familiar with who we are, the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance is a one-stop shop for community neighborhood data. And we have been doing this since the year 2000. So we're in our 21st year of doing this. And we are part of the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership, which is a network, a learning network of cities around the country that are trying to do similar work. And so we try to bring best practices to Baltimore based on what other great cities and great partners are doing around the country. So let's talk a little bit about the plan for this year, because we're obviously working in very unusual situation. Our staff is working off-site still. We started working last March, so we have not been in the office together for a year, and we miss each other, and then we miss all of you. But normally, Vital Signs comes out, and we have to have a 16-month lag in the data. The data ends at the end of a calendar year. It takes us about a year to get all of the data. We are a comprehensive site, so we have 8 different topics of data, and then we release it in the following spring. So we're looking at the end of 2019, and it's now the spring of 2021. Well, you know, normally that's okay for what we do. A lot of people want more, but this year we know that 2020 was such an unusual year, and we're all trying to figure out what has happened in our city because of the pandemic. And so we're going to try and get you data and information that maybe we haven't collected ourselves, but we know is as timely information about neighborhoods as we can get. So for example, the Urban Institute, and obviously I'm going to talk about workforce and education, workforce and census related data today. And then every time we release a bunch of chapters, we will talk about as up-to-date data as we can find. So the Urban Institute is issuing this Where Low-Income Jobs Are Being Lost interactive website. It's an amazing website if you haven't seen it yet, but it basically looks at BLS data and how different sectors of the economy might be impacting different parts of town. So they've estimated since March of 2020, about 9,000 low-income workers have lost their job in the city. And if you look at where they're estimating these workers live, we think this has been hardest hit in areas like Loch Raven, Claremont Armistead, and Brooklyn Curtis Bay. And these are not necessarily high unemployment neighborhoods, right? Because these are folks that were employed before the pandemic and may have lost their jobs. And the other data set that we would suggest taking a look at if you're looking at very timely data around employment, the Baltimore Metropolitan Council has issued the recovery dashboard, which is a very amazing dashboard that you could take a look at. And of the kinds of job losses that we're looking at, it's estimated that 60% of that is happening in accommodation and food services, which again is not necessarily a surprise, but this is kind of where accommodation and food services workers might be living. And that's what we care about, from as timely information as we can get. So if you are curious about more up-to-date information, we are going to try and issue as much data as we can for 2020. We don't have any yet for neighborhoods, but as we move forward, we're going to try and issue 2020 data. But this is what we normally do. So we are going to be talking about 2019, and there's certainly a story to be told here, that we are trying to issue data for a couple of chapters at a time so that we don't wait until the very end when we normally issue data. We're going to be releasing the workforce and census demographics for now. The other chapters will hopefully come roughly, every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be issuing 2 or 3 more chapters, and then we'll issue webinars as we get them so that you can ask questions. And our website, if for those of you that have not been there, is of course bnujfi.org, and we will do a quick demo of that. We have some new stuff that is exciting. We have obviously the fact that all of our chapters now are interactive web story maps, and I'm going to show you how that works, but that gives you a way to kind of interact with the data as well as read in a narrative form some things that might be of interest about what the data is showing you. So if you like to read or reports, they are available, but it gives you a way to kind of interactively work with the data too. And what's new with the Vital Signs is that Vital Signs is on Open Baltimore. I feel like we should have like a happy dance. If everybody wants to get up and do a happy dance right now, this is an amazing news. I want to congratulate Cheryl Knott and the team at BCIT that worked really diligently over the past couple months to actually make sure that when the new version of Open Baltimore was released this year, our data is literally one of the first things that you can search for. So notice down here, you can literally search on Open Baltimore for Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance data. And it's so exciting because we just issued this week and it is already connected, which is, I guess, the whole point, right, of an API, that it's live. So we're so excited that this is available, and you're looking at the same data. So no matter which way you look at our data, whether you look at it on our website, whether you look at it on our open data portal, whether you're looking at it at Baltimore's open data portal, you're looking at the same data and it's the same kind of curated information. So that's exciting that however your brain works and however you're going to access data, the data is available to you when you need it. So even though we're only issuing 2 chapters, these are all of the data indicators that we have live for you now. It's really only, a fourth of what we are going to be putting out, but it's still a lot of information and hopefully super useful and a lot of work, obviously, for our staff to put this out. So what's the point of all these data? You're trying to tell a story about Baltimore's neighborhoods using now 19 years worth of data to try and understand the context that you might be working in, that you might be living in, that you might be doing work in. So let's tell a little bit of a story, first of all, about gentrification. I know this is a word that a lot of people talk about when they talk about neighborhood change, that places are gentrifying. And let's really unpack what this might mean using our indicators that we have released this time. There's 3 main ways that people talk about gentrification. Very simple ways. This is a very simple way to define gentrification, but we're looking for neighborhoods that change in terms of income, change in terms of race, and also change in terms of education. So when you see a shift from kind of one set of indicators and on those 3 facets, and then how they might shift over time. So the one big news here in 2019 is that, believe it or not, Canton is now our #1 neighborhood for median household income, which if you were in Baltimore 20 years ago, you would have never said that about Canton. And today it is our #1 median income. And so we have a bunch of ways for you to make decisions in your neighborhood to kind of understand this in, again, a way that makes sense to you. All of our indicators have maps. The darker the color, the higher the value of that particular indicator. So we know we have high incomes around the water, which is actually a new phenomenon. Kind of high incomes in that north part of town is a little bit of an older reality in Baltimore. But there's other ways that our website enables you to kind of make decisions depending on how you think. So in our story map, you can take a look at kind of the top 5 neighborhoods in terms of income. And like I mentioned, Canton we've been watching Canton kind of creep up and up in the rankings in terms of median income, but this is the year that it decided to kind of cross over and become our #1 median income. But it's happened, over time. So this is also ways that you can look at data on our website, looking at change over time. And you can see the top 5 neighborhoods that have had change in income since 2010. This is just in the last decade. Canton has seen a 72% increase in income, whereas North Baltimore, Guilford area had a similar median income in 2010, but it only increased by 38%. So you can start to use the website and these kind of decision-making tools to explore how different neighborhoods have changed. So this is in terms of income. Let's talk about in terms of race. Obviously, we are or unfortunately, we continue to be a relatively segregated city. This is what Dr. Lawrence Brown in his new book called The Black Butterfly refers to, literally the wings of the city that look like, that have predominantly African-American neighborhoods, as well as the spine of the city that is predominantly non-Hispanic white neighborhoods. So we have the spine, which is called the white L, and then that Dr. Brown calls it the white L, as well as the wings, which are the kind of butterfly of the city. And so even though we have kind of change in income in some of our neighborhoods, let's take a look at change in race in terms of both Black and white. And again, these are all things that you can do on our website on your own, and I'm going to give you a demonstration on how to do that. But you can see which neighborhoods have seen some change in white, which is Patterson Park, Poppleton, which is on the west side of town, Penn North, Reservoir Hill, and Highlandtown. So in that southeast part of town, we see Patterson Park and Highlandtown, and I think you're going to see Highlandtown again. So Highlandtown showed up as an increase in income. It's also showing up as a little bit of an increase in white, although it was relatively high white population back in 2010 to begin with. And then where are we seeing changes in African-American? They aren't happening in the same places. Morrill Park, which is on the southwest part of town, has seen an increase in African-American percentage. Also Washington Village, Pigtown, which is very close to Poppleton, they're right next door to each other. Mount Washington, Sedonia, and Harford are all on the northeast part of town too. So you can see there's change in race in some of our neighborhoods, but they're not the same exactly as change in income. And then finally, looking at change in education, this is a very dramatic correlation with change in income, right? So Highlandtown, South Baltimore, Patterson Park, Fells Point, and Canton all showed up on that change in income, and they're all showing up here in change in education. And this is kind of how a change in a flavor of a neighborhood can happen, right? If you went from 33% of your population with a bachelor's degree in 2011, and now you're at 62%, this is Highlandtown, it just becomes a different change in the character of a neighborhood and what people are looking for in terms of the neighborhood businesses that are supplied there, and of course the change in the income. So this is a very quick way to think about gentrification. It's certainly not the only way to think about it, and it's possibly not even the best way to think about it, but it is a way that you can use our website to think through some thoughts that you might have about how neighborhoods are changing. And now these are indicators available on the website right now. Just a reminder of the census demographics information. We still are using 2010 census data because that is the full enumeration. The last time we had a full enumeration where we have data, the 2020 census data is coming out as we speak. We know that we're going to start getting redistricting data soon, and then we will slowly start to get census tract data, which is what we need for the population figures. So there are a few data points still on our website that are 2010, just because that's the best we've got so far. But the vast majority are coming from the American Community Survey, and those are the 5-year rolling averages. And so the latest one that was released is the 5-year 2015-2019 rolling average. So in the demographics section, of course, you're not only going to find what I showed you already, which was Black population and white population, but the other kind of major populations in the city. You can see where we have Hispanic population, which is predominantly here in the southeast part of town, and including the South, including Brooklyn, Curtis Bay. And then you have Asian population that's predominantly in the center and around the water too. Not huge in terms of, the numbers overall, but in some neighborhoods, you can start to see pretty large populations of both Hispanic and Asian. There's a racial diversity index, which truly tries to look at all four of them combined. What's the probability in your neighborhood that if you pick two people at random, they would be of two different races? Right now, the city is increasing in that, the randomness and the mixing, I guess, of people. But we only have 6 communities in the city of Baltimore that we might call, no majority one race. There's 6 out of 55 where that is true. We'll see how we're headed, in the next couple of years of how that might happen. And these are the ones that are kind of that no majority one race. We have obviously a lot of information about poverty. And again, this is leading up into 2019. So kind of what has happened during the pandemic. We're probably sure that this has exacerbated some of these problems in some of our neighborhoods. But this is where we were as of 2019. And then in terms of workforce and economic development, again, to think about, digital equity was a big issue leading into the pandemic, and of course became predominantly very acute because we're all here on a virtual space because we're able to be here. And we know that that's not an equitable outcome for so many people. And you can see that in some ways, digital equity is almost like a digital exile, right? That if you're not on the internet, particularly now during the pandemic, and I know a lot of work has been done in 2020. We don't have any data right now to show what the impact of that work has been, but that's something that obviously we want to track. But at the time, when we had in 2019, you can see people that did not have internet access at home and how sharply that correlates with unemployment at the time. So that's where I'm going to stop for now and basically do a quick demo of our website so that you can see how you could use this information in your own work. And if my staff wants to tell me if there were any questions while I was doing that, I can probably make sure that we answer that during the demo. All right, so let me show you our website. Kind of go over to our Chrome site. And again, our main website is benajfi.org. And when you come to our main website, you'll see that you can access information in basically 3 different ways. You can access something if you know which community you're looking at. You can look at it by topic or area. And like I mentioned, right now, Census Demographics and Workforce are the 2 that we've released. Or you can just do a search by indicator if you know exactly what the indicator, the name of the indicator is. You can just do a keyword search right here. Since we don't have all of the data for every community yet, I'm going to just kind of go into the census and workforce demographics by topic so that you can see how some of the things that I showed you on my PowerPoint presentation, how they would work here too. And just in case this takes a little bit of time, I think I do have it preloaded. So if you were to click on Census Demographics, you would get something that will get you to all of the indicators for, there it worked, all of the indicators for Census Demographics. And if you do not see data for 2019, that means that that's one of those indicators that we do not yet have for 2019. So average household size is only available in the decennial census. You'll only get it for 2010. But if you do click on any of the other indicators, you should get the 2019 data. And then if I clicked on it, yep, there we go. So then you'll get populated data. And then you can always go, sorting to see what is happening with respect to every indicator. And then eventually you can actually click on each indicator itself up here at the top. And I know that our website is very slow today. You should be able to get a dedicated page just for that indicator. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to move around a little bit so you can see other parts of the website. I always point people to the map gallery. For those that are visual, you will get, if you go into the map gallery, you can come and see all of the indicators and all of the maps associated with the indicators. You can also see them over time. All of the data goes back to 2020. All of these images go back to 2020. So if you want to see how something might have changed, and again, if you're a visual viewer like that and you just need a JPEG, I don't know, you can all maybe raise your hands of how many people have used one of these images in a PowerPoint presentation that you might be given to your community or to your students, because I think they're famous in that way. So you can always go to mapping resources that you might need for either doing a presentation or actually doing the work yourself if you ever want to do that. The other thing that we have is if you wanted to go into the full report, you will see data story maps. Oops, that's the wrong one. So census and workforce are the two that are open. And again, this gives you a little bit of a narrative if you like to read up about what's going on in each one of these. And it gives you an interactive way to look at data that's in the website. So lots of maps that are, you can click on and actually look at things while you're reading. And that's what the best part about the story maps are. The other one is, of course, well, one point is that when we were headed into the pandemic, for better or worse, we were at our best level of unemployment that we had seen in a decade, right? Unemployment was coming down dramatically. So we were in kind of a good moment leading into the pandemic. Unfortunately, we know the devastation that it's caused. So this is the rest of the information from vital signs in the census, in the workforce and education. And again, becomes totally interactive for you to look at. We have so much information for businesses and size and age and investment. And I want to thank the Johns Hopkins Center for 21st Century Cities that has actually helped us with one indicator around investment and how much investment is happening in our neighborhoods. This is an indicator that we've had now with them for the last 3 years. So the last thing I want to maybe talk about before I go into Q&A is, of course, our own open data portal, and might have Cheryl give a couple of minutes on kind of how to do this. And once you get to know our open data portal, it'll be very easy for you to access the city's open data portal. And we will put all of these links for you in the chat if you want to, because once you get to know ours, you'll get to know theirs very quickly, which is a good thing. So to get to our open data portal from our main website, you would, let's go to our main website. There's a couple of ways for you to access it. You would come into here in the Vital Signs drop-down menu, and there's a Vital Signs Open Data tab, which gets you to our Open Data portal. So Cheryl, do you want to, I can drive while you maybe tell us what we should do.
Sure, and thank you for driving. So we have, like our website, a few different ways on our open data portal to access this data and information on this ArcGIS hub. So when you come to the page, you have the ability to do a keyword search for an indicator, or you can select from one of our 8 different Vital Signs community chapters. So the cool thing about all the data that's on here is that we have all of our data going back to 2010 for our community statistical areas. We're obviously starting to push through a lot of the 2019 data, but we're also starting to push out data that is for Baltimore City. So if you are interested in downloading some of that data or accessing those APIs, if you're a developer, you now have the option of choosing which geography you'd like. In addition to that, on this main page, we have our links to our Esri story maps. So this is just a fantastic way that we're able to integrate text that describes some of the changes, the patterns, the trends that we're seeing in Baltimore and its neighborhoods, and then also have the ability to plug in different dashboard visualizations, so charts, graphs, and maps as well, and have that interactivity. So Seema, if you'd like to scroll up to the top, we can just do a quick search for an indicator. So you can just start typing something in there and it will come up. So so if you'd like to select number of businesses or any of these indicators, they're all good. They're all great. So it will take you to this landing page for the data indicator. So at the top, we've obviously got the name of the indicator, and then we have a description that provides a bit of information, so a definition for the indicator, the source, so where Binia accesses this data set, and then the years that we have it available in this data set that you can then look at. So for this particular indicator, comes from InfoUSA, and we have data for 2010 to 2019 right here on the website. So there's a couple of things that you can also do from this main overview tab. Under the attributes, you can click on one of the years and it will create, sorry, I have to throw it back to a little bit of old stats class, a quick histogram that describes how many of the 55 community statistical areas go into these different buckets or categories. So you can see in this case, in 2019, 47 of the 55 communities were in this 1 to 500 number of businesses within a community. So the majority of the community statistical areas have a small number of businesses, but there are a few that have quite a number. So thinking of like downtown or other parts of the city that just have a lot of activity. And then if you scroll up, Seema, the other cool thing is that when you click on one of those years, it will also generate one of these maps. These are called choropleth maps that allow you to see the data visually represented. Low values have a light color, high values have that darker color. So you can start to see visually and spatially those areas that are fitting into these different categories. So certainly you can see the center, the core of the city, and then also around Johns Hopkins kind of appearing as having some of the highest number of businesses in Baltimore. And then all of those communities, they're clickable. So if you click on those, it will pull up a little pop-up, and then you can see the number for the community across time 2010 to 2013. So if you'd also like to take a look at the data, we have a data tab that's right next to overview that allows you to see the full data set. So all of the 55 community statistical areas, the years that we have available. And then you can also do some filtering on the data. So let's say you're really interested in looking at the 2019 data and figuring out how many of the CSAs have, let's say, 100 to 200 businesses in there. I don't know if there's any, but so that's something you can do. You can type in your ranges, and then when you click off of that, it will then show you, okay, so we've got then 23 community statistical areas are in that filtered range. You can then clear out of filters. You can then also download this data. So the cool thing that you can do is you can download all of the data, so all of the 55 community statistical areas, into a spreadsheet that'll open up in Excel, or you can download a KML or a shapefile of that full data set, all 55. If you have filtered the data, you have the ability to download that filtered view of the data. So in this case, that would be those 23 CSAs that are in that particular range. So just really cool way of accessing that data if you're interested in kind of tossing it into Excel, pulling it into a statistical package or GIS. If you are a web developer or a programmer, if you're developing your own dashboards and tools and would like to integrate Binia's data, we have this API button that will allow you to then connect to the data that we have hosted on ArcGIS Online. So again, you can do the full data set, or you can start doing some of these custom filter views. And so we have the ability for users to, like I said, just access this data regardless of how you're using it. And it's accessible on our open data portal as well as the cities. And anytime we then would push out data updates, they will always be in this one place. You'll have that one URL. If you're a developer, you will never need to update it. It will be right here for you and accessible. So that's just a really quick overview of the open data portal. We try to just keep a lot of those GIS resources, those open data resources all in that one place so that it can be a kind of a one-stop shop if you are a GIS, so geographic information systems geek like me, if you're a developer. And then of course we have all this data as well on our website if you are more familiar with accessing the data on tables or printing off of the website. So a lot of different ways of accessing the data depending on who you are and what sort of question you're interested in answering.
I just want to thank you, Cheryl. So I just want to close out kind of the formal part of this by saying that we have a lot of information for, we have lots of reports, a lot of maps. We've got a lot of things that if you're an instructor, whether you're a professor or a teacher or a neighborhood leader and you want to train your own community, and lots of other ways to stay connected with us, including a FAQ section in case you want to have very specific questions that we probably answered before, and then how to contact us and stay connected with us. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing.